Well, on to this. While the world watches this tense situation in the Middle East changing minute by minute, unrest is unfolding here in the United States. Just yesterday, a district court ruled that President Trump illegally deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles to respond to anti-ICE riots there. That happened late last night. But literally hours later, the story changed. If you woke up thinking the district court judge had won the day, you would be wrong, because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the decision, giving President Trump a temporary win, allowing him to keep the National Guard on the grounds in L.A. We've seen how violent those riots have gotten over the last few days, and now this weekend, there are more nationwide protests expected to happen. We've seen a mix of protesters at these riots. They're supposed to be ICE-focused, but we have seen images showing some waving the Palestinian flag, as you see there, while wearing keffiyehs around their necks. And now, with the situation escalating in Israel with Iran, concern is growing over how that might fold into the protest designed for this weekend. George P., I want to start with this ruling. You had Judge Breyer out of San Francisco saying that President Trump's actions were illegal. Interestingly, I had seen liberal legal scholars say, the president has this vast authority with the National Guard, but Judge Breyer thought differently. The Ninth Circuit, two Trump judges, one Biden judge, overturned that. There's supposed to be a hearing next week. Your thoughts?
Well, it's the right ruling. The president historically does have broad authorities to federalize the National Guard. We've seen it in response to natural disasters. In this context, protecting federal property, lives that are on the line, particularly our ICE agents, where there's been threats of violence against each and every one of them that are conducting these raids in question in California, when they are just following their directive to enforce federal immigration law. This is something that we haven't seen during the Biden days, and finally we're seeing it play out. As a former statewide leader, I just don't know of anybody in Texas, I don't know of anybody in a state that would not deny or not welcome federal resources, because this gives local and county officials to triage the risk and prioritize the deployment of their resources against violence and property damage. So once again, it shows Governor Gavin Newsom and the leadership in L.A. neglecting their duty in response to crisis, whether it's the wildfires of last year. I'm hearing from folks it could take years to rebuild, and even just to have water on site in response to the wildfires just a year ago. But once again, showing a failure of leadership in protecting the taxpayers of California that in droves are moving to states like mine and Texas, bringing their businesses because they're tired of it.
Emily, a little Fox News alert that judges are not many commanders-in-chief. And yet, when I read this ruling from Judge Breyer, I see language like plaintiffs and the citizens of Los Angeles face a greater harm from the continued unlawful militarization of the city. It's not the judge's role to pontificate on the degree of harm from the National Guard. That would be the role of the executive.
And that's exactly what the administration has responded and maintained the whole time, which is essentially that it's not for a lower court to determine questions of politics, questions of what we have supreme and plenary authority over. So for you to say, well, it hasn't risen to the level of this yet, it's very out of their bounds. I note, too, if I may, about the media coverage, which continues to sort of obsess and focus on the prior ruling. So you have to sort of dig deep to discover that indeed, as it currently stands, the federal courts agree, rightly so, with the constitutional power and use of the authority that the president has maintained. Because certainly if you're reading the news in California, you think that those judges have their way.
Yeah, and he also said there's overwhelming evidence the protesters are gathered around a single issue in L.A., and that's ICE. And while that may be true, we have, Julian, seen a whole mix of things. Anarchists, we've seen the keffiyehs.
Without question, the police chief himself said, sure, some of these people are protesting ICE, but we're seeing the usual suspects, the anarchists, the rioters that get involved in all these, not just in California, but apparently in other states. He said so himself. We've all seen the viral videos of people saying, I was paid to come out here. This is organized. These guys show up and there are cinder blocks on pallets. There are Molotov cocktails ready for them. This is organized. This is funded. And I think that very little of this is really about ICE deportations.
Yeah.
I find that highly unlikely. And last but not least, this kind of chaos is baked into California culture. I grew up there. We have seen this since Rodney King. We've already had riots and looting once this year in January. What state has needed the Guard twice in 2025? Come on. None.
Yeah. I mean, Harris, the images we're looking at there, we have a few of them. Those are not like anti-ICE images necessarily.
I mean, sometimes you look at the video and you think, what am I looking at, the Middle East? I mean, that could be anywhere. That could be Gaza. I mean, it is really fascinating how far into this we've come with regularity. So if someone's protesting one thing, as Jillian just said, the paid-fors get there for the party, and they're always there. Jeb, you said something, though, triage crisis. That is not Governor Gavin Newsom's strong suit.
No.
He does not triage crisis. He doesn't triage anything helpful in that sense. But I thought it was a good catchphrase for what he is incompetent at.
Yeah, that is a good catchphrase. Not a triage artist. All right, more Outnumbered in a moment.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.